He was abandoned on the first date, humiliated and alone. The waitress, unaware of who he was, decided to comfort him. The millionaire, tired of selfish interests, saw something unique in her. A simple gesture completely changed both of their lives. What do you think will happen in this story? Comment and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. Nathan Thompson, at 42 years old, gazed at New York City from his office on the top floor of the building that displayed his surname in silver letters. Thompson Tech had become one of the largest technology companies in America, and his name was synonymous with innovation and power. But while the city sprawled at his feet, a strange feeling of emptiness consumed him from within. The sound of the door opening brought him back to reality. Jessica, his executive assistant, entered with a list of invitations to social events and corporate dinners. Another week filled with empty commitments, he thought as he nodded mechanically. "Do you need anything else before the meeting with the investors?" asked Jessica, efficient as always. "No, thank you. You can go." Alone again, Nathan unbuttoned his Armani jacket and loosened the tie that seemed to suffocate him more each day. On the glass desk, the reflection of a man he no longer recognized. He was tired, not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep resolves, but the kind that comes from the soul. For years, he hadn't known what a genuine connection was. His relationships, all superficial, revolved around what he represented. A coveted billionaire, a trophy to be displayed. His last girlfriend, Brittany, had ended everything after discovering he wasn't planning to invest in her promising cosmetics brand. Before her, Lucy only talked about exclusive parties and yacht trips, and Patricia, well, she had sold intimate stories to a gossip magazine. "Who am I beyond my money?" he murmured to himself as the sun began to set behind the skyscrapers. The idea came to him that night during a charity dinner where everyone seemed to wear the same social mask he did. He observed the calculated smiles, the measured laughs, the gazes that evaluated status and wealth. That's when Greg, his only childhood friend and the company's financial director, commented, "Sometimes I wonder what our lives would be like if we didn't have a single penny." The phrase, said unpretentiously, planted a seed in Nathan's mind. What if he could, for a moment, strip away everything that defined him externally? What if he could know what it was like to be just Nathan? The next day, he created an anonymous profile on a dating app. He used his middle name, Richard, and omitted any details that might reveal his true identity. The photo, taken at an angle that made recognition difficult, showed only a middle-aged man with a calm expression. In the description, technology, professional appreciator of coffee and good conversations. For 3 weeks, he chatted with various women. Most lost interest when they discovered that Richard didn't have Instagram or other social media. Some gave up when he refused to talk about his financial situation, until he met Diana Miller. Diana was different. She spoke about literature, travel, and philosophy. She had strong opinions about politics and art. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know him beyond appearances. After 2 weeks of daily conversations, they arranged to meet at a cafe in Greenwich Village, known for its bohemian atmosphere and diverse clientele. On the morning of the meeting, Nathan opened his immense closet and, for the first time, ignored the custom-made suits. He chose simple jeans, a blue cotton shirt, and sneakers. He left his Rolex at home as well as his corporate card. He put only his ID and some cash in his pocket. He looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. He looked like an ordinary man. His driver, George, thought it strange when Nathan asked to be dropped off a few blocks from the agreed location. "Are you sure, Mr. Thompson? The area isn't the safest." "Yes, I'm sure, George, and please go home. I'll let you know when I need you." The freedom to walk without being recognized was intoxicating. He passed by shop windows, observed ordinary people in their daily routines, and felt for the first time in years part of the real world. The Serenity Cafe was exactly as he had imagined, cozy, with worn wooden tables, plants hanging from the ceiling, and a persistent aroma of freshly ground coffee. He chose a table in the back, ordered an espresso, and waited, feeling a teenage-like anxiety. When Diana entered, he recognized her immediately. Tall, dark, wavy hair, wearing a patterned dress that enhanced her natural beauty. She swept the room with her gaze until her eyes met his. For a moment, Nathan saw something change in her expression, an almost imperceptible furrowing of her brows. She walked to his table with calculated steps. "Richard." "Yes, that's me. You must be Diana. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person." She didn't sit down. Instead, she examined him from top to bottom, looked at the simple coffee in front of him and at the surrounding environment. Then, with a coldness that completely contradicted the person he had conversed with for weeks, she said, "I'm sorry, I think this was a mistake. You're not, well, not what I expected." Before Nathan could respond, she had already turned around and was walking toward the exit. The meeting, planned for days, had lasted less than a minute. He felt his face burn with humiliation, as all the cafe's customers seemed to be watching him. He lowered his eyes to the cup, trying to process what had just happened. The experiment was over, and the conclusion was painful. Without his name and his money, he wasn't worth even 5 minutes of Diana Miller's time. That's when a female voice, soft and with a slight southern accent, interrupted his thoughts. "Can I bring you anything else, sir?" Nathan raised his eyes and saw the waitress, young with curly hair tied in an improvised bun, an apron stained with coffee, and a genuine smile that illuminated her brown eyes. On her name tag, a simple name, Emily. "No, thank you. Actually, I think I'll be going." Nathan tried to disguise his embarrassment, but his eyes betrayed the humiliation he felt. The waitress hesitated for a moment, observing the practically untouched cup. "You know," she said softly, leaning slightly, "I saw what happened. Some people are just like that. They judge a book by its cover." There was something in the simplicity of those words that touched him. It wasn't pity, but genuine empathy. "You don't deserve to have your afternoon ruined because of that. Our cornbread with raspberry jam just came out of the oven, on the house." Before he could refuse, she had already moved away toward the counter. Nathan observed her agile movements as she served other customers. There was a lightness to her, an authenticity that contrasted with the artificiality of the environments he frequented. Minutes later, she returned with a generous slice of bread and another cup of coffee. "May I?" she asked, indicating the empty chair across from him. "Of course," replied Nathan, surprised by the waitress's polite boldness. "Emily Carter," she introduced herself, extending a hand with short nails and traces of colorful paint. "I'm on my break, and honestly, I prefer talking with you to sitting in the back room listening to Marcus complain about his ex-husband." Nathan smiled for the first time that day. "Richard Thompson," he responded, hesitating slightly before using his real surname. After all, it wasn't exactly a lie. "So, Richard, what do you do for a living when you're not being dismissed on disastrous dates?" The frankness disarmed Nathan completely. "I work in technology," he answered vaguely. "And you, have you always been a waitress?" Emily laughed, a light and musical sound. "This is just for weekends and some nights. During the day, I'm an art teacher at a public school in Brooklyn Heights." That surprised him. "2 jobs?" "3, actually. I also paint on commission, portraits mainly." She showed her paint-stained hands. "Didn't have time to clean properly before my shift. I have a community exhibition coming up, and I'm working like crazy to finish everything." As she spoke, Emily cut a piece of the bread and pushed it towards Nathan. "Try it. My Grandma Hazel's recipe, she says cornbread cures any sadness." Nathan tried it and was immediately transported to a simpler, more authentic place. The homemade flavor contrasted with the molecular gastronomy of the starred restaurants he frequented. "It's wonderful," he said sincerely. "Grandma Hazel would be proud to hear that. She raised me, you know, taught me everything I know about art and about life." Without realizing it, Nathan found himself completely engaged in the conversation. Emily spoke about her students with passion, about the difficulties of teaching art in an underprivileged community, about her dreams of one to having her own studio. "Last year we got some donated computers for the school. It was a revolution. The kids can now research artists' techniques. You can't imagine how much that expanded their horizons. Which company made the donation? Asked Nathan, genuinely curious. Thompson Tech, replied Emily with a sparkle in her eyes. Have you heard of it? The founder, Nathan Thompson, has a digital inclusion project. I've never seen him personally, but I really admire the social work he does. Nathan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his own lie. I've heard of it, he murmured, looking away. Emily looked at the clock and sighed. My break is over. It was a pleasure talking with you, Richard. The pleasure was mine, he replied sincerely. Maybe I'll come back another day. Tuesdays are quieter, she suggested with a smile, standing up. And I'm usually off from school, so I work. The afternoon shift here. That brief encounter left a profound mark on Nathan. On his way back to his penthouse apartment, he couldn't stop thinking about Emily's simplicity and authenticity. For years, he had been surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Emily, in contrast, had offered companionship without expecting anything in return. The following Tuesday, he returned to the Serenity Cafe. Emily greeted him with a smile of recognition, as if they were old friends. That afternoon, she showed him some sketches she was preparing for her exhibition, urban landscapes of New York seen through the eyes of her students. Each painting is a collaboration. They tell me how they see the city, and I try to capture that vision. Tuesdays quickly became a ritual for Nathan. At the office, he invented external meetings or personal commitments. He exchanged his suit for casual clothes, and for a few hours allowed himself to be just Richard, an ordinary man falling in love with the Waitress teacher-artist. On their fourth meeting, Emily casually mentioned a problem. The school was having difficulties buying materials for the exhibition. The Board of Education money never arrives, and when it does, it goes to more essential things. Art always comes last. Nathan felt the impulse to solve the problem immediately. He could make a substantial anonymous donation the next day, but something stopped him. Emily wasn't asking for help, just sharing a frustration. Offering money could compromise the purity of that relationship. The next day in his office, he summoned Greg. I need you to do something discreetly, he said, handing over an envelope. I want these art supplies to be delivered to Brooklyn Heights Public School. No identification. Of origin, no fanfare. Greg raised an eyebrow but didn't question. Years of friendship had taught him when not to ask questions. The following week, Emily was radiant. You won't believe it. We received an anonymous donation of art supplies, canvases, professional paints, brushes. I've never worked with such high-quality materials. Nathan smiled, feeling a satisfaction different from anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't the public recognition of a large corporate donation, but the genuine joy in Emily's eyes. As the weeks passed, Nathan discovered, in Emily, a depth he had never found in his social circles. She spoke about art with passion, about education with conviction, about life with a wisdom that came from real experience, not abstract theories. In contrast, he felt increasingly uncomfortable with his lie by omission. Each Tuesday, the guilt grew. Emily admired Nathan Thompson without knowing she was sitting in front of him. What would happen when she discovered the truth? This question tormented him especially that night as he rode the elevator up to his penthouse. Upon entering, he found Greg sitting on his sofa with a serious expression. We need to talk, his friend said without beating around the bush. Something's happening that you need to know about. Nathan poured himself a whiskey, preparing for some corporate crisis. It's about that waitress you've been visiting in Greenwich Village. The glass froze halfway to his mouth. How do you know about that? I had her investigated after you asked for that anonymous donation. I thought it might be some kind of scam. Emily is not a scammer, Nathan responded defensively. I'm not. Saying she is. Greg raised his hands in a peace gesture. But there's something about her that you need to know. Something about her family. What could be so important? Greg hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to reveal. Emily Carter has a sister. You know her. Know her? Who? Diana Miller. The name hit Nathan like a punch. Diana, the woman who had rejected him at the cafe. The woman who had triggered this whole situation. That doesn't make sense. Emily never mentioned a sister. Apparently they haven't spoken for years. They had some kind of serious family disagreement. From what we've discovered, they're practically opposites in everything. Nathan collapsed onto the sofa, trying to process the information. Fate seemed to be playing an elaborate trick on him. "There's more," continued Greg, visibly tense. "Diana discovered who you are, and she's determined to meet you again." "How did she find out?" Nathan asked, feeling his heart race. "What does she want?" Greg shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. "Apparently she recognized you in some internet photo after the failed meeting. She called the company several times. Jessica blocked all attempts, following our security protocol, but Diana is persistent." Nathan ran his hand through his hair, trying to organize his thoughts. The universe seemed to be conspiring to complicate his life just when he had found a bit of peace. "How long have Emily and Diana not been speaking?" "About 7 years from what we've discovered. The grandmother, Mrs. Hazel, is the only family link that maintains some kind of contact with both." Nathan poured himself more whiskey, now taking a long sip. The alcohol burned down his throat but didn't relieve the tension he felt. "What does Diana do for a living?" "She's a public relations manager for celebrities and influencers. She works with the image of rich and powerful people, helping them connect with the right brands." Greg made a significant pause. "She has access to many journalists and media outlets." The implication was clear. Diana could turn this into a scandal if she wanted. "Thanks for warning me, Greg. I'll handle it." After his friend left, Nathan spent hours contemplating the illuminated city through the panoramic window. His mind alternated between memories of conversations with Emily and the potential disaster that Diana represented. When he finally fell asleep, he dreamed of colorful paints dripping through his hands, while a female voice repeated, "Some people judge a book by its cover." The next morning, he called Jessica. "If Diana Miller tries to contact again, transfer the call to me." The assistant, always professional, didn't question the change in protocol. The call came the same day at 2 in the afternoon. "Mr. Thompson," Jessica's voice sounded over the intercom. "Diana Miller on line 1. Nathan took a deep breath before answering. "Nathan Thompson. Or should I call you Richard?" The voice on the other end had an amused, almost playful tone, completely different from the coldness she had shown at the cafe. "Ms. Miller, how can I help you?" "Please call me Diana. After all, we've already met. Or at least I thought I knew you." "What do you want, Diana?" "Straight to the point. I like that." She made a theatrical pause. "I want to apologize for our disastrous meeting. If I had known who you really were—" "You would have acted differently," Nathan interrupted her, feeling a twinge of irritation. "That's not exactly a convincing apology." Diana laughed, a crystalline and rehearsed sound. "Touché, but you have to admit it was an unusual situation. The richest man in the country pretending to be an ordinary technology professional. You can understand my surprise. You still haven't answered my question. What do you want?" "Dinner, tonight, at the Carlyle, to start over." Nathan felt a mixture of repulsion and curiosity. Part of him wanted to hang up the phone and forget Diana Miller forever. Another part wanted to understand the connection between her and Emily. How could two sisters be so different? "I'll consider it. But first I have a condition." "I'm listening." "I want to know about your sister, Emily." The silence on the other end of the line was so prolonged that Nathan began to think the call had dropped. "How do you know about Emily?" Diana's voice had lost all affectation, replaced by genuine tension. "I have my methods just as you had yours to find me." Another long silence. 8 o'clock at the Carlyle, Diana finally responded. "We'll talk about everything then." The Carlyle restaurant in the heart of the Upper East Side was one of the most exclusive in New York. Nathan arrived punctually, wearing a dark suit that cost more than many Americans earned in a year. This time, there were no disguises. Diana was already waiting for him at a discreet table in the back of the salon. She was stunning in a red dress, Perfectly arranged hair, impeccable makeup, the opposite image of Emily's simplicity. Punctual. "I like that in a man," she commented when he sat down. "You said we would talk about your sister." Diana took a sip of champagne before responding. "Straight to the matter, then. Emily and I haven't spoken for 7 years. We grew up together, in Charlotte, raised by our grandmother after our mother abandoned us. Mrs. Hazel, a lovely but old-fashioned lady, always encouraged Emily with those artistic nonsense." Nonsense? Painting, literature, classical music, things that don't pay bills. Diana made a dismissive gesture. "I was always more practical. When I turned 18, I convinced Emily to come with me to New York. I wanted to build a career, be successful, be somebody. She wanted to find her artistic voice, or something equally vague." Nathan carefully observed Diana's expressions as she spoke. There was barely disguised resentment in her words. "In the first years, we shared a tiny apartment in Queens. I started as an intern at a public relations agency, while Emily gave private drawing lessons and worked as a waitress. She refused to accept corporate jobs, said they suffocated her creativity. The waiter approached to take their orders. Diana chose without even looking at the menu, familiar with the place. Nathan ordered the same, eager to continue the conversation. "What caused the rift between you?" Diana fiddled with her napkin, suddenly uncomfortable. "An irreconcilable difference in values. I got an opportunity for both of us at the agency where I worked. Emily would have a salary 3 times higher than what she earned giving lessons, but she refused, saying she wouldn't sell her soul for money." "And that was enough to break your relationship?" "It wasn't just that." Diana took another sip of champagne. "Around the same time, I met Tyler Jennings. He owned a contemporary art gallery and was interested in Emily's work. I arranged a meeting between them. I thought I was helping my sister realize her dream." Nathan began to see where the story was heading. "Tyler and I started dating. Everything was going well, until Emily accused me of using her to get close to him. She said I only cared about status and money, that I had become an empty and superficial person." Diana's voice trembled slightly. The things she said were unforgivable. "And what happened with Tyler?" A bitter smile appeared on Diana's lips. "He broke up with me 3 months later and moved to Berlin. I never heard from him again. The dinner arrived, but neither seemed really interested in the food. Emily remains the same," continued Diana, "living as if money and status don't matter, as if the world were a big art studio. Meanwhile, I've built a respectable career. I have important clients, a penthouse in the Upper East Side. I travel to Paris twice a year. Who was right after all?" The question hung in the air, clearly rhetorical. But Nathan felt an almost physical need to defend Emily. Maybe it's not a question of right or wrong, just different choices. Diana studied him with renewed interest. "Is that why you were pretending to be someone else at that cafe?" "Tired of the choices you made." The question hit him with unexpected force. "I just wanted to know if someone could be interested in me, not in my money or position." "And you found your answer when I left you talking to yourself." Diana laughed, but without humor. "Ironic, isn't it? I rejected you for seeming ordinary, while my sister would probably accept you precisely because of that." Nathan felt uncomfortable with the accuracy of that observation. "Why did you seek me out, Diana? What do you really want?" She leaned forward, her eyes shining with calculated intensity. "I want to know the real Nathan Thompson. I want to understand the man who hides behind the billionaire. And maybe, who knows?" Her hand lightly touched his on the table. "Maybe we can discover together what really matters in life." The touch was soft, but Nathan felt as if he had been branded with iron. There was something predatory about this. A woman, something that made him deeply uncomfortable. "What about Emily? Are you going to tell her about me?" Diana slowly withdrew her hand, leaning back in her chair. "For now, that will be our little secret, but I confess I'm curious to see how this story ends." Her smile now had something threatening about it, like that of a cat watching a cornered mouse. "Do you really think my idealistic little sister will take it well when she discovers that her friend Richard is actually the billionaire she so admires from afar. That he lied for weeks playing at being poor. Nathan felt a knot in his stomach. Put that way, his actions seemed cruel and manipulative, exactly the opposite of what he had intended. I'm not playing at being poor. I'm just trying to have genuine connections. It's what we all want, isn't it? Diana raised her glass. The difference is that some of us are honest about the means we use to get them. As they toasted, Nathan was sure of one thing. He needed to tell Emily the truth before Diana did. But how to explain that his approach, although based on a lie, had resulted in the most authentic moments of his life? The cafe seemed different that Tuesday, or maybe it was Nathan who was seeing everything with different eyes after the meeting with Diana. The worn wooden tables, which before seemed charming in their simplicity, now reminded him of the abyss between his world and Emily's. The aroma of coffee, once inviting, now carried the weight of guilt. Emily greeted him with the same warm smile as always, completely unaware of the storm that was brewing. "I thought you wouldn't come today," she commented, placing a steaming cup in front of him. "Is everything okay? You look worried." Nathan tried to smile. "Just tired. Tough week at work." Emily sat across from him, taking advantage of her break as usual. Today her hair was loose, the curls framing a face without makeup, with some freckles visible on her nose. She wore a plaid shirt over a simple t-shirt and jeans. She had paint stains on her hands, as always. "The exhibition is almost ready," she commented enthusiastically. "Those materials we received made all the difference. The kids are so excited. Some had never used professional acrylic paint before." The glow in her eyes when talking about her students was hypnotizing. Nathan felt increasingly torn between the need to reveal the truth and the fear of losing that connection. "I want to show you something," Emily said, taking her phone from her pocket. "This is the digital invitation for the exhibition. What do you think?" On the screen, a colorful drawing made by several hands framed the details of the event. "Visions from Brooklyn, a collective exhibition. Brooklyn Heights Public School. Saturday, 7 p.m. "It looks incredible," he replied sincerely. "Your students have a lot of talent." "They do, don't they? Especially when someone believes in them." Emily put away her phone. "You'll come, won't you? It would be important to me to have you there." The question caught him by surprise. Going to the exhibition would mean entering her world, meeting her students, perhaps even her grandmother. The possibility of meeting Diana also loomed in the air, although Emily had never mentioned her. Nathan hesitated. It was the perfect moment to tell the truth, to say who he really was. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you." A shadow of concern passed over her face. "What is it?" "I'm not exactly who you think I am." Emily tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" At that exact moment, Nathan's phone vibrated insistently in his pocket. It was Greg. He ignored. "Taisi, my full name is Nathan Richard Thompson. I am—" The phone vibrated again, and once more. "Sorry," he said, finally taking the device from his pocket. There were 5 missed calls from Greg and a message. "Emergency. Call now." "I need to take this," he said to Emily, standing up. "It's from work. I'll be back in a minute." He went to the sidewalk and returned the call immediately. "What happened?" "We have a serious problem." Greg's voice sounded tense. "The company's security system has been breached. They're trying to access confidential client data." "My God, did they get in?" "Not yet, but it's just a matter of time. I need your authorization to implement the Fortress Protocol." The Fortress Protocol was an extreme measure, which would involve temporarily shutting down all company servers and isolating the network. It would mean millions in losses, but it was preferable to a data breach. "Do whatever is necessary. I'm on my way." When he returned to the table, Emily was watching him with concern. "Did something serious happen?" "Yes, an emergency at work. I need to go immediately." Nathan felt a pang of frustration. He was about to reveal everything, and the universe was conspiring to delay the moment. "Of course I understand," Emily replied with a comprehending smile. "We can continue our conversation next week. Or—" She hesitated briefly. "You could call me. We never exchanged numbers, did you notice? That small gesture, Emily asking for his number, touched him deeply. It was so simple, so normal, and yet it meant so much. They exchanged contacts quickly. Before leaving, Nathan held her hand for a moment longer than necessary. "I'll come to the exhibition, I promise." The crisis at the company occupied Nathan for the next few days. The hacker attack had been sophisticated, clearly the work of professionals. Fortunately, the Fortress protocol had worked, and no data had been compromised, but the incident had left everyone shaken. On Thursday night, exhausted after long meetings with the security team, Nathan finally arrived home. Upon entering, he found a woman comfortably seated on his sofa, Diana Miller. "How did you get in here?" he asked, alarmed. "Your doorman is very obliging," she replied with a smile, standing up. She wore a tight black dress that accentuated every curve of her body, especially when I mentioned that I'm your special friend. "You shouldn't be here." "Don't be so formal, Nathan. I just came to bring some information that I thought you'd like to know." She walked to the bar and helped herself to a glass of whiskey without asking permission. "I heard you had problems at the company. Hacker attack, wasn't it? How terrible." There was something in her tone that put him on alert. "How do you know about that? We didn't make it public." Diana shrugged. "I have my contacts. The important thing is that you contained the problem. Congratulations." Nathan approached, feeling his anger grow. "What do you want, Diana? Say it at once." "Straight. To the point, I like that." She took a sip of her drink. "I've been thinking about our conversation at the Carlisle, about genuine connections and honesty, and I've come to the conclusion that you really need to be honest with my sister." I was about to tell her everything when the emergency arose. "How convenient." Diana smiled. "Anyway, I think she deserves to know soon. Before the exhibition, perhaps?" "That's exactly what I intend to do." "Great, because I'll be there." Nathan felt his blood freeze. "You're going to the exhibition?" "Of course, it's a community event, open to the public. And after all, my grandmother will be there. It's been a while since I've seen Mrs. Hazel." The implicit threat was clear. If Nathan didn't tell Emily the truth, Diana would do it in the worst possible way. "Why are you doing this, Diana? What do you gain from this situation?" She approached, standing inches from him. Her perfume was intense, almost suffocating. "Maybe I want to see how this story ends. Or maybe—" She lightly touched his chest. "Maybe I want to show that I'm the sister who really understands your world, who belongs in it." Nathan stepped back, disgusted by the blatant manipulation. "You don't belong in my world, nor do I want to belong in it anymore." Diana laughed, a cold and calculated sound. "How romantic. The billionaire who falls in love with the waitress with a pure heart. Sounds like a Mexican soap opera script." She finished her drink and placed the glass on the table. "But real life is more complicated, isn't it? In the real world, people lie. People hurt each other. People discover that not every fairy tale has a happy ending." When she left behind a trail of expensive perfume and a sense of inevitability. Nathan knew he was in a race against time. The next day, he tried to call Emily several times, but all calls went to voicemail. He sent messages asking to talk before the exhibition, but got no response. On Saturday, he decided to go to the school earlier, hoping to find Emily alone and finally reveal everything. He dressed simply, jeans, white shirt, sneakers, and drove his less flashy car, a domestic Honda. Brooklyn Heights Public School was located in the heart of Brooklyn, one of the largest communities in New York. The contrast with his world of privilege couldn't be more evident. Narrow streets, simple houses, children playing soccer in improvised fields. He parked a few blocks away and walked to the school, a simple building painted light blue. In the inner courtyard, several people were working on setting up the exhibition. Colorful panels were being positioned, improvised lights were being installed, and at the center of everything, coordinating every detail, was Emily. She looked different today. She wore a simple cotton-patterned dress, her hair arranged in a more elaborate bun, a light touch of makeup. Even in her simplicity, she was stunning. Next to her, a white-haired lady with an erect posture was giving instructions to some students. From the resemblance to Emily and the natural authority, it could only be Mrs. Hazel. Nathan hesitated at the entrance, suddenly feeling like an intruder. This was Emily's world, authentic, simple, full of meaning. His heart raced when she finally saw him. For a moment, her smile illuminated everything, but it was soon replaced by an expression that Nathan couldn't decipher, a mixture of hurt, confusion, and something more. Emily walked toward him, and he realized that the moment of truth had arrived. "Hi," she said simply. "Emily, I need to tell you something important." She interrupted him with a gentle gesture. "You don't need to, Nathan. I already know who you are." The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Nathan felt the blood pulse in his ears as he processed Emily's words. "How?" was all he could articulate. Emily looked around, visibly uncomfortable with the possibility of being overheard. "Let's talk outside." He followed her in silence to a small garden behind the school. The space was simple but carefully maintained. Flower. Beds surrounded a wooden bench worn by time. Emily sat down and he did the same, maintaining a respectful distance. "Diana told me," she finally said, looking at her own hands. "She showed up at my house last night." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a wave of anger and frustration. Diana had won the race. "I tried to call you several times." "I know. I turned off my phone after she left. I needed to think." There was a calmness in Emily's face that disconcerted him. He expected tears, anger, accusations, not this almost resigned serenity. "What exactly did she tell you?" Emily finally looked at him. Her eyes were tired, as if she hadn't slept. "Everything. That you're Nathan Thompson, founder of Thompson Tech. That you had a date with her through an app using the name Richard. That when she rejected you, you decided to—" what was the word she used? "Oh yes, play with me." The last phrase was said with a bitterness that cut Nathan's heart. "Wasn't like that," he protested. "It was never a game." "Then what was it, Nathan? Or do you prefer I call you Richard?" There was now a hint of irritation in her voice. "A social experiment? A way to alleviate your guilt for being rich, while people like my students barely have enough to eat?" "Emily, please." He tried to hold her hand, but she pulled back. "Yes, I used another name. Yes, I omitted who I really am. But everything we talked about, everything we shared, was real." Emily shook her head, incredulous. "Real? You lied from the first moment. You sat in that cafe week after week, listening to me talk about how I admire the work of the great Nathan Thompson, about how the computers donated by your company changed my students' lives. And you said nothing." "I wanted to tell you. Last Tuesday, when I was interrupted by the phone call—" "You could have told me any time before that," she interrupted him. "You had weeks, Nathan. Weeks." A heavy silence settled between them. In the distance, they could hear the buzz of preparations for the exhibition, children's laughter, instructions being given, life going on, oblivious to the small drama unfolding. In the garden. "You know what hurts me the most?" Emily continued, her voice now softer. "It's not that you're rich or famous. It's that you didn't trust me enough, to be honest. I thought we had something special, something real in a world of fakery." Nathan felt each word like a needle in his chest. She was right, of course. His cowardice, his fear of losing the connection they had built, had led him exactly to this result. "You're right," he admitted. "I was a coward, but I need you to understand why I did it. All my life, people have only approached me for what I have, not for who I am. When Diana rejected me at that cafe after seeing that I was dressed simply, it was just confirmation of something I already knew. But then you appeared—" He paused, searching for the right words. "You offered me cornbread and sincere conversation, without expecting anything in return. It was the first time in years I felt seen as a person, not as a bank account or a door to opportunities. And I was afraid, Emily. Afraid that if you knew who I really was, everything would change." Emily watched him attentively, her face a mixture of contradictory emotions. "And the worst part is that you were right," she finally said. "Everything changed the moment Diana told me the truth, but not for the reason you imagine." "What do you mean?" "It means you never really knew me, Nathan. If you had trusted me from the beginning, you would have known that your money wouldn't mean anything to me, that I value honesty above anything else. Nathan felt the weight of that truth. In his attempt to find someone who would accept him, regardless of his wealth, he had completely underestimated Emily. "I understand if you don't want to see me anymore," he said finally, "but I came here today to support you and your students. If you prefer, I can leave now." Emily ran her hand through her hair, a gesture he already knew well. It meant she was thinking, weighing options. "The exhibition starts in an hour. All the students are anxiously waiting to show their work. Grandma Hazel insisted on preparing snacks for the guests, even with the arthritis that barely lets her hold a spoon." She looked directly into his eyes. "This event is too important to be overshadowed by this. Stay if you want, Nathan, but as a visitor, not as whatever we were." Before he could respond, a familiar voice interrupted the moment. "Emily, oh sorry, am I interrupting something?" Mrs. Hazel was approaching along the garden path. Up close, the resemblance to Emily was even more evident. The same expressive eyes, the same dignified posture despite her advanced age. She wore a simple but elegant outfit and carried in her wrinkled hands an embroidered handkerchief. "No, Grandma, we were just finishing." Emily stood up quickly. "This is Nathan Thompson." Mrs. Hazel's gaze went from Emily to Nathan, a silent understanding in her wise eyes. "Ah, so this is the famous Nathan." There was something in her tone that suggested she knew more than she let on. "Emily has told me a lot about you, or should I say about Richard." Nathan stood up, feeling uncomfortable under the penetrating gaze of the lady. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Hazel. Emily always speaks of you with great affection." "I imagine she does. My granddaughter is a transparent person, you know. Incapable of hiding what she feels." She took a step forward, examining him with curiosity. "You, on the other hand, seem to have practice in hiding things." "Grandma, please," Emily intervened, embarrassed. "It's all right," Nathan responded. "Mrs. Hazel is right. I wasn't honest with Emily, and I'm here to try to fix that." The lady smiled slightly. "Fixing is good. Breaking is easy, young man. Anyone can break something. But fixing requires patience, skill, and above all, humility." Emily checked her watch. "I need to get back. The guests will start arriving soon." "Go, my child," Mrs. Hazel said. "I want to exchange a few words with Mr. Thompson, if he doesn't mind." Emily hesitated, looking from one to the other with uncertainty. Finally, she nodded and moved away toward the school building. When they were alone, Mrs. Hazel sat on the bench and gestured for Nathan to join her. "Diana was at my house this morning," she said without preamble. "She told me her version of this whole story." Nathan sighed. "I imagine it wasn't a version very favorable to me." Actually, she seemed quite pleased with herself, like a child who managed to break her sister's toy. The frankness of the lady surprised him. "My granddaughters haven't spoken to each other for years," Mrs. Hazel continued. "I love them both, but they're like water and oil. Diana always wanted more money, more status, more power. Emily has always been content with less, as long as that less had meaning." "I noticed that from the first day," Nathan commented. "Emily has a rare authenticity." "Yes, she does, and that's why your lie hurt her so deeply." Mrs. Hazel adjusted, the handkerchief between her fingers. "But you know, young man, sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves. Perhaps you needed that lie to discover a truth about yourself." Nathan reflected on the lady's words. There was a wisdom there that transcended simplistic judgments. "What should I do now, Mrs. Hazel?" "Well, what else? Fix what you broke, if you can, and if you can't," she shrugged, "then learn from it and move on a little wiser." Her young man appeared on the path, calling for Mrs. Hazel. "Grandma, Teacher Emily is looking for you. The first guests have already arrived." "I'm coming, Peter." She stood up with some difficulty. Nathan offered his arm to help her, which she accepted with a grateful smile. "One last thing, Mr. Thompson. My dear Emily has a huge heart, but she also has pride. If you truly care about her, you'll need more than words to regain her trust." With that, Mrs. Hazel slowly moved away, supported by the young man's arm. Nathan remained in the garden for a few minutes, trying to organize his thoughts. When he Finally returned to the school, the courtyard was transformed. Colorful lights illuminated the panels where the students' works were displayed. A small crowd was already circulating through the space, admiring the works. And then, at the center of it all, like a vision, Nathan saw Diana. She wore a red dress that dramatically contrasted with everything around her. She was chatting animatedly with a man in a suit, whom Nathan recognized as an important art curator from New York. Beside them, Emily observed the scene with an unreadable expression. When their gazes met, Nathan knew the night would be even, more difficult than he had imagined. Diana had seen him too, and the smile she directed at him was loaded with triumph. The game was just beginning. The exhibition was buzzing with energy. Proud children showed their works to visitors, explaining techniques and inspirations with the eloquence that only passion provides. Parents and family members circulated with smiles of pride, while community residents admired how talent could flourish even in adverse conditions. Nathan tried to keep his distance from Emily and Diana, focusing on the exhibited works. Each painting told a story. Visions of Brooklyn through young eyes, dreams translated into colors, fears transformed into art. One in particular caught his attention, a painting of a cafe with two people sitting at a table. Despite the childish style, he immediately recognized himself as well as Emily. "That was made by Matthew," said a voice behind him. It was Emily. "He's 12 years old and is determined to become an artist. He said he was inspired by the stories I told about the nice man from the cafe." There was a fragility in her voice that broke Nathan's heart. "It's an incredible work," he replied, not knowing what else to say. "Yes, it is." Emily hesitated, as if pondering her next words. "Grandma told me to give you a chance to explain yourself, so I'm listening." Nathan took a deep breath, knowing that this moment could be his only opportunity. "Remember when you told me about your method of teaching art? You said that first you let the children freely express what they feel, without rules or expectations. Only later do you introduce techniques and corrections." Emily nodded, confused by the direction of the conversation. "My whole life has been the opposite of that. Since childhood, I was molded to meet expectations, from my parents, from society, from the market. I learned all the techniques to be successful, but I forgot how to simply feel." He paused, carefully choosing his words. "When I met you, it was as if someone had given me a brush and said, 'Now paint whatever you want, however you want.' It was scary and liberating at the same time." Emily watched him attentively, her face a mixture of contradictory emotions. "I understand that the lie hurt you," Nathan continued, "and I completely accept responsibility for that. But I need you to know that, of all the versions of me that have ever existed, the one you met at the Serenity Cafe was the most authentic." Before Emily could respond, a melodious and calculated voice interrupted the moment. "What a touching scene," Diana approached, holding a glass of sparkling wine. "My little sister and the repentant billionaire almost makes me believe in fairy tales." Emily closed her eyes for a moment as if gathering strength. "This is not the time, Diana. On the contrary, darling, this is exactly the time." Diana came closer, forming a triangle between them. "We're all here, reunited after so many years. The family almost complete, isn't it?" There was something dangerous in Diana's tone, a veiled threat that made Nathan instinctively take a step forward, as if to protect Emily. "Paul Mendez loved your work, Emily," Diana continued, referring to the curator she had been conversing with earlier. "He said you have a raw, authentic talent. He offered a space in his gallery for an individual exhibition. Isn't that wonderful?" Emily seemed genuinely surprised. "Paul Mendez from Vanguard Gallery, how do you know him?" "Oh, darling, I know everyone who matters in New York." Diana smiled, satisfied with the effect of her words. "The question is, would you accept the offer even knowing it was your despised sister who got it for you?" Nathan immediately perceived the manipulation. Diana was creating a situation where Emily would seem ungrateful if she refused, or hypocritical if she accepted. "You haven't changed at all, have you?" Emily responded, surprising both with her calmness. "Still turning everything into a competition, a power game." Don't be ungrateful, Emily. I'm offering you the opportunity you've always dreamed of. No, Diana, you're trying to prove something. To me, to yourself. I don't know. But this event isn't about you, or about me, or about Nathan. It's about those children and what they've accomplished. A small group of students approached, interrupting the growing tension. Teacher Emily. A boy of about 10 years old pulled her by the hand. Come see, the TV guy wants to interview us. Emily cast a final, meaningful look at Diana and Nathan before moving away with the children. As soon as they were alone, Diana's smile disappeared. Do. You really think she'll forgive you? That you'll live happily ever after in your glass and steel castle? Why does this bother you so much, Diana? Nathan asked, studying her with genuine interest. What do you really want? The question seemed to catch her off guard. For a brief moment, her mask of self-confidence wavered. I want her to see reality. Emily has always lived in a fantasy world, believing that art and good feelings feed people. She refused real opportunities because of her principles. There was bitterness in her voice. Meanwhile, I did the dirty work. I met the right people, smiled at the right events, built a career. And are you happy with your choices? Diana laughed, a sound without humor. Happiness is for people like Emily, who are content with crumbs. I prefer power. And you know what's funny? Even after everything, even after rejecting the world I built, it's her who gets the attention of men like you. There was something almost vulnerable in that involuntary confession. Nathan began to understand that perhaps Diana's motivation wasn't simply malice, but a distorted type of envy. Not of the material goods Emily lacked, but of her ability to find contentment and genuine connections. It's not too late to rebuild. Your relationship with her? Nathan suggested. Emily has a huge heart. Don't be condescending with me. The venom returned to Diana's voice. I don't need advice from someone who built a relationship based on lies. At that moment, an excited murmur ran through the exhibition. All eyes turned to the entrance, where Mrs. Hazel had just arrived, supported by a cane decorated with colorful ribbons. At her side was a distinguished middle-aged man whom Nathan immediately recognized, Mark Sullivan, the city's superintendent of education. Emily hurried to receive them, followed by several students. Diana also moved in that direction, clearly interested in introducing herself to an important political figure. Taking advantage of the moment, Nathan withdrew to a quieter corner of the exhibition. He needed to think, to elaborate some plan, to demonstrate to Emily that his words were sincere. That's when he noticed a painting partially hidden behind a pillar, a simple painting of two hands on a table. One hand held a coffee cup, the other had colorful paint stains. The style was different from the other works, more mature, though still not professional. It's mine, said Emily, who had approached silently. I paint too sometimes, when I need to organize my feelings. Nathan observed the work with renewed attention. It was the perfect representation of the connection they had shared, simple, authentic, unpretentious. It's beautiful, he said sincerely. It conveys exactly how I felt on those Tuesdays. Emily sighed, leaning against the wall beside him. I felt that way too, as if I had found someone who really saw me. And I did see you, Emily, I still do. A heavy silence established itself between them, loaded with unspoken words and contradictory feelings. You know what's ironic? Emily finally said. If you had told me the truth from the beginning, you probably would have scared me. I would have thought that someone like you would never be genuinely interested in someone like me. That's ridiculous. You're extraordinary. In your eyes, perhaps. But I grew up in Diana's shadow, always feeling insufficient. She was the pretty one, the ambitious one, the one who knew how to dress and speak correctly. I was the weird one, the dreamer, the one with paint on her hands and strange ideas in her head. The vulnerability in Emily's voice moved him deeply. Behind her strength and authenticity, there were old wounds that had never completely healed. When Diana showed up yesterday, Emily continued, part of me wasn't surprised. I always expected her to come back to prove she was right, that the real world is no place for dreamers. And what do you think now? Emily looked at the exhibition around her, the proud children, the admiring visitors, the colors and shapes expressing hopes and dreams. I think there's room for dreams, even in the real world. But I also think we need honesty for those dreams to have foundation. Before Nathan could respond, a commotion began in the center of the exhibition. Diana had climbed onto a small platform and was asking for everyone's attention, microphone in hand. Good evening, everyone. As the sister of the talented organizer of this event, I'd like to make a special announcement. Emily paled. What is she doing? Nathan had a terrible presentiment. Nothing good, I'm sure. They approached quickly, as did everyone else present. Diana, the center of attention, seemed in her element. I'm very proud to announce that my sister, Emily Carter, has received an invitation to exhibit at the prestigious Vanguard Gallery, thanks to the intervention of the renowned curator, Paul Mendez. Enthusiastic applause filled the space. Emily, embarrassed, tried to maintain a polite smile while clearly wishing to disappear. But there's more, Diana continued, her smile now almost predatory. We have with us tonight a very special guest, someone who has been silently supporting this project. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Thompson Tech, Nathan Thompson. A murmur of surprise ran through the crowd. All eyes turned to Nathan, who remained motionless, understanding the trap Diana had prepared. Come, Nathan, Diana called with false cordiality. Tell everyone how you met my sister. It's such an interesting story. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan looked at Emily, whose eyes were fixed on him, a mixture of fear and supplication in her gaze. That's when Mrs. Hazel stepped forward, her voice firm despite her age. My granddaughter Diana has always had a special talent for drama, she said, provoking some nervous laughter. But tonight is not about famous businessmen or prestigious galleries. It's about these children and their stories, told through art. Mrs. Hazel walked slowly to where Nathan and Emily were, placing herself between them and Diana. However, since my granddaughter started this conversation, allow me to finish it properly. She looked directly at Nathan. Mr. Thompson, I've heard a lot about you in the last few weeks. Emily constantly talked about a man named Richard, who appeared at the cafe where she works. A man who listened to her, who was interested in her students, who understood the importance of art. The entire room was in absolute silence, hanging on every word of the elderly lady. I discovered today that Richard and Nathan are the same person, and you know what I think about that? She made a dramatic pause, her wise eyes scanning the crowd. I think that sometimes we need masks to discover our true faces. With those enigmatic words, Mrs. Hazel handed the microphone back to one of the organizers and walked away, leaving behind an atmosphere of reflection that completely dissipated the tension created by Diana. Taking advantage of the moment, the superintendent of education took the floor, praising the project and announcing a partnership with the city to expand art education in the public system. Diana, frustrated at having her moment of glory interrupted, descended from the platform and headed toward the exit, casting a final furious look in the direction of Emily and Nathan. The exhibition continued, Mrs. Hazel's intervention having transformed what could have been a scandal into merely a footnote of the night. The students once again became the center of attention, their works receiving the deserved praise. Nathan observed Emily circulate among the guests, explaining the techniques used, introducing the young artists, celebrating their achievements. There was a tranquil strength in her that fascinated him more and more. When the night was coming to an end and the visitors began to say goodbye, Nathan finally managed a moment alone with her. Your grandmother is amazing, he commented. Emily smiled, the first genuine smile she had directed at him since the revelation. She has that effect on people. She always knows exactly what to say. Emily, She raised her hand, gently interrupting him. Not here, not now. I'm still processing all of this. I understand. I just wanted to say that regardless of what happens between us, I'm deeply proud of what you've accomplished here. Emily looked around, at the space transformed by her students' art, by the dreams she had helped cultivate. Thank you, she said simply. That means a lot. When their gazes met again, there was something different. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the possibility of it. 3 weeks passed since the exhibition. The event had been an absolute success. All the neighborhood newspapers reported on it. Some local stations did reports, and the superintendent of education kept his promise, initiating a pilot program to expand art education in public schools. For Nathan, however, these days were marked by a painful absence. Emily didn't respond to his messages, didn't answer his calls. He respected her space, but the uncertainty consumed him. In his office at Thompson Tech, he distracted himself with work, a lot of work. He immersed himself in reports, meetings, and strategic planning like someone seeking anesthesia. Greg, a silent witness to that self-imposed routine, finally decided to intervene. "You can't continue like this," he said, entering Nathan's office without ceremony. "You're working 16 hours a day. Even the programmers are worried." Nathan rubbed his tired eyes. "I'm fine. Just busy." "Sure, and I'm Santa Claus." Greg sat in the chair in front of the desk. "Have you tried going to the cafe?" "Twice. She wasn't there. And the school. I sent flowers, they were returned." Greg sighed. "You didn't expect it to be easy, did you? You lied to her for weeks." "Thanks for the unnecessary reminder." Nathan closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "What do you suggest then? That I kidnap her to talk?" "Don't be dramatic, I'm just saying you might need a different approach." Greg hesitated for a moment. "Actually, I came here for another reason, something I think you should know." The serious tone of his friend caught Nathan's attention. "The Serenity Cafe is for sale, or rather it's already been sold. It's going to close at the end of the month." The news hit Nathan like a physical blow. The cafe where everything had begun, where he and Emily had shared so many moments, would simply cease to exist. How did this happen? "The owner, Mr. Mitchell, has health problems. He needed the money for treatment. He sold it to a developer who plans to demolish the building and construct a commercial building." Nathan felt an idea beginning to form. "Who's the buyer? Which developer?" "Horizon Group." "Why?" Without responding, Nathan picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Jessica, I need you to schedule an urgent meeting with Robert Almeida from Horizon Group, today, if possible." Greg watched with growing interest. "What are you planning?" A small smile appeared on Nathan's face for the first time in weeks. A way to fix something broken. The meeting with Robert Almeida was brief and productive. As president of one of the largest technology companies in the country, Nathan had considerable persuasive power, especially when accompanied by an irresistible financial offer. The following days were of intense activity. Teams of architects, designers, and builders worked incessantly, following very specific guidelines. Nathan personally supervised every detail, determined to transform his vision into reality. In parallel, he didn't give up trying to contact Emily. Finally, after almost a month of silence, he received a message. "I'm ready to talk. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. at Central Park, near the lake." The night was sleepless. Nathan mentally rehearsed everything he wanted to say, how he would explain his actions, how he would demonstrate his regret and, most importantly, his true feelings. Central Park was particularly beautiful that sunny June afternoon. Families strolled, children ran, couples walked hand in hand, small fragments of happiness that made Nathan feel even more acutely what he had lost. Emily was already waiting for him, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake. She wore jeans, a simple cotton blouse, and her hair tied in a messy bun. To Nathan, she had never been more beautiful. "Hi," he said, approaching hesitantly. "Hi," she responded, indicating the space beside her on the bench. They sat in silence, for a few moments, watching the ducks that glided peacefully on the surface of the water. "How are you?" Nathan finally asked. "Well, busy. The exhibition opened many doors for the school. We got sponsorship for more materials, and 3 of my students received scholarships for an intensive art course." "That's wonderful." Another silence. There was so much to say that it was difficult to find where to begin. "I accepted Paul Mendez's invitation," Emily said finally. "I'm going to exhibit at Vanguard Gallery next month. Congratulations. Your work deserves to be seen." Emily turned to face him directly. "Why did you come on Tuesdays, Nathan?" "The truth." The direct question caught him off guard, but perhaps it was exactly what they needed. Raw honesty without filters. In the beginning, it was curiosity. I wanted to understand why you, unlike Diana, had approached me when it seemed I had nothing to offer. He paused, organizing his thoughts. But after the first conversation, I came back because you made me feel alive, real. You talked about your students, about art, about your dreams, with a passion I had never experienced. It was as if I were seeing colors after a lifetime in black and white. Emily listened attentively, her face an impassive mask. With each Tuesday, I felt closer to the person I always wanted to be but never had the courage. Someone who values real connections, not possessions. Someone capable of seeing beauty in simple things. He hesitated, gathering courage. Someone worthy of a woman like you. Emily's eyes softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. I fell in love with Richard, a simple man who listened to me, who cared about my students, who found humor in my paint-stained hands. I am Richard, Nathan responded urgently. That man in the cafe, with or without the surname Thompson, with or without the money, is me, the most authentic and true part of me. Emily looked away, fixing her gaze again on the lake. During these weeks, I thought a lot. About you, about us, about what all this meant. She sighed deeply. I talked with Grandma Hazel almost every day. You know what she told me? What? That. Sometimes we need to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve peace. Nathan felt a wave of hope. I also talked with Diana, Emily continued, surprising him. It was difficult but necessary. 7 years is too long to carry grudges. How was it? Honest, painful, revealing. Emily smiled slightly. I discovered that behind all that arrogance, there's an insecure woman who always thought she wasn't loved enough, who competed with me because deep down she believed there was only room for one of us to be happy. And now we're trying. We won't be best friends overnight, but it's a start. Nathan admired Emily's capacity to see beyond appearances, to seek understanding where others would see only conflict. Emily, he took a deep breath. I love you, and I know I don't deserve a second chance, but if you could find in your heart— Wait, she interrupted him. Before you continue, I need to tell you something. I'm considering accepting a proposal to teach art in Seattle, a social project similar to what I do here, but with more resources, more reach. The news hit him like a bucket of cold water. Seattle? But it's so far away. It's a great opportunity, Emily explained, and maybe I need distance from New York, from the complications, from all this. Nathan felt desperation grow. He was losing her before he had really had her. I understand, he managed to say. And when would you decide? Soon. In fact, I came here today not only to talk with you, but to say goodbye. I leave tomorrow to get to know the project. So, quickly, Nathan's voice faltered slightly. Emily nodded, an undeniable sadness in her eyes. Sometimes it's better this way. Cut it all at once, like a bandage. They were silent again, the weight of unspoken words between them. Finally, Nathan gathered courage. Before you decide definitively, I'd like to show you something. Not to influence your decision, but because it means a lot to me. Emily hesitated. What? It's a surprise. Could you come with me? I promise it won't take long. After a moment of indecision, she agreed. Nathan's car, a discreet domestic model, not the Ferrari he owned, was parked near the park. The journey to Greenwich Village was made in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived at the Serenity Cafe, Emily was visibly confused. Why are we here? You'll understand, let's go. The cafe was closed, a sign saying closed on Mondays on the door. Nathan took a key from his pocket and opened it. The interior was completely transformed. The same worn wooden tables remained, the same counter, the same chairs, but the walls, previously a faded yellow, now displayed dozens of paintings, some clearly made by children, others by more experienced artists. In the center, the painting of the two hands that Emily had painted stood out. What is this? She asked, turning slowly to absorb the change. "I bought the cafe," Nathan explained. "Mr. Mitchell needed to sell due to health problems, and a developer was going to demolish the building. I couldn't let that happen." Emily touched one of the tables as if to confirm it was real. "But I didn't just want to preserve the place," Nathan continued. "I wanted to transform it into something more, a space where art and community could coexist, where your students could exhibit permanently, where new artists could find a platform." He led her through the space, showing the modifications. In the back, where before there was only a small kitchen, now there was a complete studio with easels, paints, professional brushes. The Serenity Cafe will continue to be a cafe, but it will also be a community gallery. "And this studio will be open for classes, workshops, artistic residencies?" Nathan paused, observing Emily's reaction. "I'm calling it Project Isolde, in honor of the story my mother told me as a child about a princess who transformed pain into art." Emily passed her hand over the surfaces, the materials, the exhibited paintings, an undecipherable emotion on her face. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Because you taught me that true connections matter more than possessions. That art can transform lives, that sometimes we need to create spaces where dreams can flourish." Nathan came closer but maintained a respectful distance. "And because, regardless of your decision about us, I wanted this place, our place, to continue existing, not as a monument to what we lost, but as a possibility of what can be." Emily had tears in her eyes now, though she fought to contain them. "This doesn't change the fact that you lied to me." "No, it doesn't, and I'll live with that guilt for as long as necessary." Nathan took a deep breath. "But I hoped that I could show that I'm willing to do the difficult work of fixing what I broke, not with grand gestures, but with consistent actions, day after day." Emily walked to the painting of the two hands and touched it gently. "What happens to this place if I go to Seattle?" "It continues to exist. It will continue to be a space for the community, for your students, for whoever needs it. Because it's not about me, Emily. It's about what you taught me to value." Emily turned to face him, a decision forming in her eyes. "You know what else Grandma Hazel told me? That sometimes, when we break a valuable vase, the pieces can be reunited, with gold, creating something even more beautiful and resistant." "Kintsugi," Nathan murmured. "The Japanese art of repairing with gold." Emily nodded, taking a small step in his direction. "I need to go to Seattle tomorrow. I promised I would get to know the project, and I keep my promises." Her voice was firm, but her eyes softened. "But when I return, maybe we can talk about possibilities." Possibilities of how to rebuild something broken, of how to transform wounds into art, of how perhaps two very different people can find a common path. Nathan felt his heart race. "I would like that very much." Emily smiled. A small, cautious but real smile. "Me too." It wasn't a guaranteed happy ending. It wasn't a promise that everything would be perfect. It was something more valuable, a blank canvas, waiting to be painted with honesty, patience, and perhaps one day, renewed love. When they left the cafe, the sun was beginning to set, painting the New York sky with shades of orange and pink. Emily looked one last time at the Serenity Cafe, now transformed into something new, something with purpose. "Tuesday, when I return," she said almost to herself. "I'll be here at 3. Nathan nodded, restraining the impulse to touch her, to hug her. There would be time for that if they were lucky, if they did the necessary work. "I'll be waiting with coffee and cornbread." Emily laughed, a sound he had feared he would never hear again. "From Grandma Hazel, she'll insist on making it herself." "I wouldn't expect less." When they said goodbye, there were no certainties, only possibilities. An unfinished story, a partially painted canvas, waiting for more colors, more textures, more life. And for Nathan and Emily, perhaps that was enough for now. The beginning of something real, built not on lies or illusions, but on the shared truth of who they really were, imperfect, complex, and deeply human. Dear listeners, We hope that Nathan and Emily's journey has touched your hearts. To continue, immersing yourself in stories that explore the complexities of human relationships, we've prepared a special playlist with equally engaging narratives. Find it here, clicking to your left. If this story awakened emotions in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Daily we bring new stories that reveal the multiple facets of life and love. What did you think of the ending? Did Nathan